Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The alien woman gripped my hand. Promise you'll never leave again. Rain wasn't supposed to fall on Saren. It was a climate-controlled outpost tucked into the atmospheric layers of a gas giant, suspended by thruster buoys and bureaucratic optimism. But today of all days, raindrops the size of fist-sized synth berries drummed against the station's outer dome like the gods were trying to tap out a jazz rhythm and kept forgetting the beat. Ira had been ignoring the weather. She ignored a lot of things these days: messages from the Interstellar Council, the calls from her mother on Valori Prime, even the increasingly concerned notices from station maintenance warning her that her pet Grak, Nibs, had been smuggling socks into the fusion core ventilation shafts again. But she couldn't ignore the figure that stepped through the quarantine portal at Dock 9. Not because the station's alarms blared red, not because the air shimmered with residual rift static, but because the universe simply stopped making sense. He was supposed to be dead. Vanished. Swallowed by the Vorton rift like so many others. Gone without a whisper. 3 years ago, Elias Tren had marched onto the MCS Tanager, flashed her that annoyingly confident grin, and promised he'd only be gone a week. She'd punched his arm, told him not to get disintegrated, and watched him disappear behind the hydraulic doors. Then the mission went dark. And now, without ceremony or explanation, here he stood. Alive. Blinking against the artificial light, covered in rift dust and a truly terrible beard. Ira didn't move. Her mind, always quick, capable of translating 9 dialects of Lorian battle sign and calculating ballistic angles while sipping tea, stalled like a hoverbike in mud. Elias took one step forward. "So," he said, voice scratchy like he'd been gargling sandpaper in regret. "Did you miss me?" She blinked. Her ears, long, tapered, and currently trembling at the tips, twitched involuntarily. She took a slow breath, turned, and walked toward him. Then she reared back and punched him in the chest. The impact sent him stumbling, more surprised than hurt. Ow. Okay, deserved, but ow. "You insufferable, time-warping, emotionally constipated meatbag," she hissed. "You were gone, Elias. For 3 years. No word, no signal, not even a psychic echo. We held a funeral. Nibs chewed through your eulogy. And now you just, stroll back in like you went out for space milk." He held up both hands, wincing as he rubbed his ribs. "To be fair, I did try to bring back milk. The rift just didn't have cows." "You're joking." He tilted his head. "Mostly." A hiss of hydraulic doors opened behind them as station security, 3 armored figures and 1 overzealous maintenance bot with a stun wand, rushed in. Ira waved them off without looking. "Stand down. He's not a threat." The bot gave a sad beep and rolled away, muttering something in binary about never getting to use the stun wand. Elias stared at her. His eyes were still that impossible shade of storm silver, but something behind them was fractured. Not broken exactly, more like a mirror that had been pieced back together with new images peeking through the cracks. "I didn't know if I'd find my way back," he said softly. Ira crossed her arms. "And yet here you are." "Yeah. Here I am." He glanced around. "This place has changed." She scoffed. "You think? Half the station's run by an AI that believes it's the reincarnation of a 20th century lounge singer. And don't get me started on the new cafeteria menus. They added something called mood pasta. I had that once. Cried for 2 hours." They stood in silence then, the artificial rain thrumming above them. For a moment, the jokes faded. His gaze softened. "You were the only thing that didn't fade," he said. "Even when I started forgetting my own voice." Her throat tightened, but she refused to be that vulnerable. "Not yet. They'll want to skin you," she muttered. "Probably dissect your memories. Maybe your liver." Elias raised a brow. "Tell them to start with the spleen. I'm pretty sure mine grew teeth." She tried not to smile. Failed. "Come on, Rift Boy. Let's get you checked in before the echoes start singing." He paused. "Wait. You know about the echoes." She didn't turn back as she walked. "We've all seen the rift's leftovers. You're not the first anomaly to crawl out of it. Just the only one I hoped would. And for a flicker of a second, Elias looked truly shaken. Because whatever had followed him out of the rift, it hadn't come alone. The interrogation room was trying very hard to look intimidating, but it had been decorated by someone with a fondness for soft lighting and ergonomic seating. Ira suspected the station's interior designer had once trained as a spa therapist before pivoting to interstellar engineering. Still, the gentle lavender hue of the walls did nothing to diminish the tension in the room. Nor did the faint background music, an upbeat jazz number that was being hummed live by the station's AI, Velma. "Please disregard the ambience," came Velma's voice from the ceiling. "I am attempting to stimulate a relaxed environment conducive to memory retrieval. Would you like a hot towel?" "No," Elias muttered, leaning back in the memory scanner chair. "Unless the towel also erases trauma." Ira stood beside him, arms crossed, long ears twitching ever so slightly. She'd spent the morning fending off higher-ups, station medics, and an overeager xenologist who'd wanted to take a scraping of Elias's brain. Just a tiny bit off the top, she told them in no uncertain terms that if anyone tried to poke him before she got answers, she would personally reprogram their digestive systems to run in reverse. She still wasn't sure why she cared so much. She was furious, yes, still mentally composing an epic rant about abandonment, lies, and ghosting across dimensions, but the fear sat deeper. Elias Tren had walked out of a cosmic fracture that vaporized dreadnoughts. That didn't happen. That wasn't supposed to happen. "Begin memory sync," Velma announced, and the soft hum of the neuronet webbing around Elias's temples activated. He winced. "It's like licking an electric eel made of algebra." Ira rolled her eyes. "Stop being dramatic. That was barely a Class 2 probe." "Class 2 probes are still traumatic," Elias said, eyes fluttering shut. "I once had one during a customs inspection on Floros 3. Let's just say there's a reason I can't eat blueberries anymore." She opened her mouth to respond but stopped as the first images from the memory scan flickered onto the holo display. What she saw wasn't right. Floating cities, massive and alive, their buildings breathing, pulsing with phosphorescent veins. A field of stars that blinked out one by one like snuff candles. A corridor made entirely of glass, stretching forever in all directions, with shadows walking upside down along the ceiling and whispering in what sounded like reversed lullabies. Then came a face. Not his own. Female, human-like except her eyes were entirely black, reflective like polished stone. And her voice, when it came, was calm and crystalline. "You are more useful broken," she had said. "Let the echo finish what you cannot." Elias jerked forward, gasping. The skin shut down. The jazz stopped. "I'm fine," he muttered. "Just a memory burp. Happens when your mind's been stir-fried by interdimensional entities." Ira sat slowly. What was that? Who was the woman? He hesitated. "I don't know. She was there in the rift. I don't remember meeting her, but she's in my head. Like a dream." "You're sure you didn't dream yourself?" "I think she's part of the echo." That word again. Ira leaned forward. "Explain it." "The echo. What is it?" Elias rubbed his eyes. "It's hard to describe. Imagine you're shouting into a canyon, but instead of your voice coming back, something else does. Something curious. Hungry. It mimicked me, learned from me, and when I found a way back, it followed. Like a ghost." He shook his head. "No. Not dead, not even alive really. More like a version of me, but without the limits. No fear. No regret. No Ira." She frowned. "That last part offends me personally." "Should. He's kind of a jerk." A silence passed between them, heavy with questions. Finally, Velma spoke up, voice slightly strained. "Commander Tren's neural scan revealed an unusual frequency in his memory engrams. It is resonating actively, as if waiting for a signal." Ira stood. "What kind of signal?" Before Velma could answer, the room's lights flickered. The air grew colder. Subtly wrong, like the moment before thunder. Then came a low hum. Not from the speakers, not from the scanners. From Elias. He blinked, confused. "Is someone singing?" Velma's voice was tight now. There is no audio feed. And the station's quantum field just shifted. Ira grabbed his arm. Elias, stay with me. He opened his mouth. A single word escaped, one he didn't remember learning, home. And just like that, the humming stopped. The light stabilized. The air warmed. Elias collapsed into the chair, panting. Velma chimed in. That was not a scheduled psychic event. I recommend tea. Or possibly exorcism. Ira crouched in front of him. You okay? He looked up, a weak smile on his lips. Well, the good news is I think I've still got it. Still got what? The universe's attention, he said grimly. And apparently it's clingy. She sighed, helped him up. Come on, Rift boy. I'm making you dinner. I accept, but if it's mood pasta again, I'm walking back into the rift. Deal, she said. But you're doing the dishes this time. And as they left, neither noticed the flickering display screen, still active behind them, looping the image of the black-eyed woman, her smile growing slowly wider with each cycle. There were exactly 6 things wrong with Elias Tren's apartment aboard Sarini Station. 1. The couch had apparently developed sentience. 2. The water filter dispensed a mildly fizzy drink that claimed to be hydration-enhanced nutrient sparkle juice, but tasted like optimistic rust. 3. His replicator had a vendetta and refused to synthesize anything other than pudding. 4. The ambient lighting occasionally flickered and whispered the name Sarah in a voice that sounded suspiciously like his own. 5. The plants in his window box had begun arranging themselves in geometric spirals not found in nature. And 6, most importantly, he hadn't slept in 4 nights. Ira discovered the 6th problem firsthand when she walked in unannounced and found Elias sitting upside down on the ceiling, sipping his traitorous fizz water and staring at a physics text displayed in inverted grab font. What, she said flatly, are you doing? He blinked at her, entirely unbothered. Studying the principles of gravitational inversion in low-pressure atmospheric chambers. Also hiding from the couch. The couch. It growled at me this morning. Ira looked down. The couch, green, velvety, and far too smug, sat motionless in the center of the room. I told you not to accept refurbished furniture from Sector 12, she muttered. I thought it added character. It added a soul, she corrected. Which is illegal. You need a license for that kind of upholstery. Elias shrugged and drifted gently down as he reoriented the room's gravity. Could be worse. Last night the toaster tried to recite poetry. Was it any good? Mostly limericks about forks. Despite herself, Ira grinned. He looked awful, pale, eye-shadowed, but he was still Elias. Still that maddening, sardonic, too clever human who'd once said, I love you like it was a dare. She handed him a wrapped bundle. What's this? Real food from the science deck. Don't ask what species it's from, just eat it before it grows legs. He peeled it open and blinked. Is it supposed to shimmer? Yes. It's high in amino acids and mild existential dread. Very nutritious. As he ate, Ira wandered the room, glancing at the not-so-subtle signs that his reality was coming apart at the seams. On one shelf, an old photograph of them, Elias in his flight suit, Ira smirking beside him mid-eye roll. The frame had cracked down the center, right between them. Still hearing things, she asked. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was softer. Yes. But not always with my ears. Explain. It's like impressions. Echoes of what could have happened, of who I could have been. They slip into my thoughts. Sometimes they even finish my sentences. I don't always know which me is talking. Ira sat across from him. Have you tried isolation therapy? Neural untangling. Velma offered me a sound bath and a scented candle named Cosmic Rebirth. Didn't help. She exhaled, long and slow. We need to go back. He blinked. To the rift? No. To your ship. Or what's left of it. The Tanager. It's still out there, drifting in the left field. Maybe the answers aren't in your head. Maybe they're still on that wreck. Elias was silent for a long time. Then, you're right. Ira arched a brow. That's terrifying. I know. It scares me too. He looked down at the now empty food wrapper. And Ira, if something happens out there. If I change, or lose myself again. She reached across the table and flicked his forehead. Then I'll knock sense back into you. Or sedate you. Possibly both. You'd really shoot me. In the leg. Gently. With love. Their trip to the docking bay was quiet. Not because they lacked words, but because the gravity of what they were about to do pressed too hard against them. The Tanager had been declared a ghost ship, its orbit barely stable, its systems corrupted by exposure to the rift. More than one retrieval crew had tried to approach, only to return confused, aged, or not at all. Still, the Council approved their mission. Technically. And by technically, it meant Ira had threatened to leak very specific footage of the chairman trying to dance at last year's Gala of Planets. Inside the shuttle, Elias ran diagnostics while Ira plotted their path. Do you want to talk about it? She asked after a while. About what? Whatever's waiting for us on that ship. He didn't look up. No. But I probably should. A beat, then he grinned faintly. I just hope the ship didn't keep my bunk the way I left it. Why? I had a poster of a 21st century Earth singer. Taylor someone. Ira squinted. Swift. That's her. She was very motivational. The shuttle engines hummed to life, lights flickering blue. They stared ahead as the docking clamps released and the stars unfurled before them. Somewhere beyond the curve of Sarah 9, the wreck of the Tanager awaited, with answers, with truths, with ghosts, and with a version of Elias who might not want to stay buried. Space, as a rule, does not hum. But as the shuttle approached the derelict MCS Tanager, a low vibration threaded through the hull. Not from the engines, but from the void itself. It was the kind of sound that made teeth itch and sent vibrations down through bone marrow. Ira, ever the rationalist, told herself it was just magnetic interference. Elias, meanwhile, was busy duct-taping a pastry box to the navigation console. Just so I understand, she said, one long ear flicking with incredulity, you brought cinnamon rolls to a haunted spaceship. Correction, Elias said, securing the final strip of tape, I brought emergency cinnamon rolls for morale. For morale. And bribery. Some dark entities respond to offerings. There's precedence. Ancient Terran lore. Ghosts, demons, in-laws. Ira sighed and leaned over the console. The wreck of the Tanager loomed outside the viewport, half consumed by a web of crystallized rift residue that shimmered like oil on black ice. The ship looked less like a machine now and more like something half-evolved, caught between purpose and decay. As they docked with the primary airlock, the shuttle's automated systems began to stutter. Screens flickered. Artificial gravity hiccuped. For one surreal moment, Ira's braid floated beside her face like a curious eel. Elias smiled faintly. The ship remembers me. Or it's trying to decide which organ to harvest first. He nudged her shoulder. Still the optimist. The airlock groaned open with a hiss of depressurization and ascent best described as wet circuit board with hints of regret. Lights flickered to life inside the corridor as they stepped through, dim, blue, and flickering like the dying glimmer of stars long gone. Inside, the ship felt wrong. Not hostile, not overtly, but as if the walls themselves were listening. Watching. Occasionally judging. Why are there footprints? Ira asked, peering at the dust-coated floor. This ship's been abandoned for years. Mine, Elias said. Or maybe not just mine. Be more specific before I start screaming. He tapped the wall, where a faint handprint was scorched into the metal. This corridor wasn't like this before. The rift changed things. Time doesn't flow straight here anymore. Ira frowned. So what? We're inside a loop. Not a loop, Elias said. More like a knot. The ship's trapped between states, every version of itself bleeding into the next. Ira glanced around. Okay, that explains the hallway looking like an Escher drawing, but why is the mess hall filled with chairs on the ceiling? That I don't know, Elias admitted. Maybe someone wanted to redecorate. A soft voice echoed down the corridor. Not through comms. Through the air. He brought you back. Ira froze. Elias did too. The voice was female. Crisp. Familiar. They turned. Standing at the far end of the hallway was a woman. Human in shape. Skin pale, almost glowing. Eyes black, glinting like mirrors. And ears, long, elfin, unmistakably like Ira's. Elias whispered, "She followed us." Ira narrowed her eyes. "No. She's already here." The woman smiled. "You're both late." Then, with a flicker, she vanished. What was that? Ira hissed, hand instinctively moving to the neural disruptor at her hip. "Echo," Elias said. "A part of me. A version that split when the rift fractured. She's not alive in the traditional sense." "Then how is she wearing boots?" "I don't know." They moved deeper into the ship, past warped bulkheads and rooms caught mid-collapse. One chamber flickered like a slideshow, every few seconds showing a different memory, Elias laughing with his crew, Elias fighting to stabilize the core, Elias curled in a corner alone. Ira reached for him. "Hey. That's not you anymore." He smiled weakly. "I don't think it ever was." They found the core room behind a door that pulsed with faint heat, like a heartbeat. Inside, everything was intact. Almost pristine. The Echo was waiting. This time she didn't vanish. Instead, she turned slowly, head tilted. "He brought the part of me that left," she said, eyes resting on Elias. "And you," she looked at Ira, "are the reason he returned." Ira stepped forward. "Why did you bring us here?" The Echo didn't answer right away. Then, he forgot who he was. I remembered. "I built a body, a voice, a purpose. But I'm not complete without him." Elias shook his head. "You're not me." "No," she agreed, stepping closer. "I'm the version of you that stayed. The one that didn't run. The one that survived." A beat passed, then she smiled and added, "Also the better dancer." Ira blinked. "Is she joking?" Elias rubbed his face. "Yes. Unfortunately, that's definitely still me." The Echo's expression grew solemn. "The rift is waking. It wants you back. Both of you. But I want something else." "What?" Elias asked wearily. "To be real. Not a shadow. Not a memory. Let me in, Elias. Merge with me. We can become again." "No," Ira said sharply. Elias hesitated. "If I do, what happens to me?" "You'll remember everything. Including the things you don't want to. The choices. The loss." He looked at Ira, at her long ears, her eyes filled with that same mixture of fire and grief that had brought him home. "No," he said quietly. "I made peace with forgetting. I don't need to become something else to be whole." The Echo frowned. The room trembled. "Then the rift will take you." Ira raised her disruptor. "It can try." The Echo smiled one last time. "Then run. Because the knot's unraveling." The ship shuddered violently. Alarms shrieked. Elias grabbed Ira's hand. They ran. There is a very specific kind of panic that comes with sprinting through a collapsing starship, hand in hand with someone you love, while a metaphysical echo of yourself tries to fold all of spacetime into an emotional casserole. Elias Tren had always imagined his end might come with more dignity. Perhaps something noble, like a reactor leak, or something poetic, like getting ejected into the void while humming an old Earth tune. Instead, he was tripping over floor panels while an artificial personality glitch wailed through the tanager's comms like a diva trapped in a broken karaoke machine. "This way!" Ira shouted, dragging him left as a section of ceiling gave up on existence behind them. "I thought the hangar was right." It was. But then the hallway moved. Great. So now the ship is gaslighting us. They dodged into a corridor that hadn't been there 10 seconds earlier. Behind them, the Echo's voice continued to rise and fall, pleading and cracking, not quite human anymore. "Elias. You don't have to run. I remember everything you forgot. I can make you whole again." He gritted his teeth, focusing on the flickering guidance panels. I don't want to be who I was. That man was broken. Ira shot him a glance, even as she yanked him out of the path of a flying maintenance drone that buzzed by like an angry blender. You're still broken, genius, she said. You're just better at hiding it under sarcasm and questionable fashion choices. I resent that. This jacket is vintage. It's got one sleeve. Exactly. Statement piece. The ship groaned beneath their feet like a giant animal dreaming of better architecture. At last, the docking bay came into view, half-lit, shimmering with unstable grab fields, and flanked by an escape pod that looked like someone had painted Plan B across its hull in permanent marker. The pod was small. Just 2 seats. No AI. No shields. Built for desperate exits and dramatic re-entries. I hate these things, Elias muttered as they climbed in. Good. That means you're sane. She powered up the console as he strapped in. Behind them, the corridor twisted again, and the echo reappeared. She didn't run. She floated, like a ghost caught in gravity's indecision. But this time, she didn't look hostile. She looked tired. I was you, she said softly. I carried your grief when you couldn't. I held the pain so you could breathe. And now you'll just leave me. Elias hesitated. He didn't hate her. How could he? She was him, the piece that never healed, the fragment that endured in the rift's chaos. No, he said, voice quiet. I'm not leaving you. I'm letting you go. He placed a hand against the pod window. You kept me alive when I couldn't be human. But I can't be you anymore. I have to move forward. The echo blinked once, slowly. Then she nodded. The launch sequence kicked in with a wheeze and a hiss, the pod lurching into motion as the bay systems belched out the last of their power. Through the viewport, the Tanager looked less like a ship now and more like a chrysalis cracking apart to release nothing. Just silence. Just release. Then it was behind them, swallowed by the rift, which blinked out like an ember finally cooling in the dark as stars settled into their proper places. Elias leaned back, exhausted. The pod drifted toward a signal beacon Ira had activated during launch. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Ira asked, "Do you think she's really gone?" He thought about it, the rift, the echo, the shattered timeline of the ship, the years he'd lost, the self he'd left behind. No, he said finally. But maybe she's resting. Maybe that's all any of us can do after we break apart. The silence stretched. Warm. Comfortable. Ira tilted her head. So, you're officially the first man to be haunted by himself, survive a metaphysical identity crisis, and still look like he hasn't shaved in 5 days. 7, actually. Disgusting. He laughed. A real laugh this time. Something unburdened. The rescue ship picked them up hours later, an old science cruiser with peeling paint and a crew that thought the whole story was a hallucination caused by recycled air. They didn't argue. Let them think what they wanted. Later, back on Sarin Station, Ira was the first to speak when the debriefing was done, the station's daylight cycle finally sinking back into her bones. What will you do now? She asked. Elias looked out at the stars. Sleep. A lot. Then maybe fix my couch. She arched a brow. The couch is a sentient entity now. I'll negotiate. Offer it a sitcom subscription and occasional vacuuming. And after that? He turned to her. I don't know. But I'm not leaving. She stared at him. Eyes sharp, then softer. Promise. He reached out, fingers wrapping around hers. Gently. Reverently. Like it was the most important thing he'd ever done. Promise, he said. I'll never leave again. Not like before. And she gripped his hand tightly, as if anchoring herself to this moment, to him, to everything they'd become after everything they'd lost. The stars didn't sing, but they watched quietly. And in that quiet, the future waited. The end.